All right, recording in progress. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and joining. In today's SEO Happy Hour, we will have Levi Klukas. Probably I'm not pronouncing her last name correctly, but it's just
Perfect.
the way I am. So thank you so much for joining the call, especially on the Sunday evening. And thank you so much for talking about this topic because I know it's very important and a lot of people are having ADHD, but they don't know how to handle properly. So having you in the SEO Happy Hour who has a lot of experience with handling this, it makes a huge benefit and difference for the SEO professionals who are having the same. So thank you so much for joining. I am Adriana Vujadin. I am coach and SEO manager. I'm helping SEO professionals to kind of like just handling their SEO job and life in more kind of like proper way with more fulfillment. And I'm teaching them about right mindset for SEO success. And one part of my job and life is actually having these SEO happy hour sessions where we are talking about like all these things that, at least for me, are definitely more important than SEO technical things. So that is introduction. Let's start. Levi, take the floor.
Thank you. So I guess kind of start a little bit with about me and what I do and how I kind of got here. So I'm Levi, pronounced perfectly, by the way. Thank you. So I am the SEO manager at Hello Earth. So we're a digital marketing agency, but we focus on performance marketing. And we're basically a values-led agency, a purpose-led agency. So we work with brands that are for good in some way, shape, or form, mostly. So whether they're B Corp and good for the environment, or if they're working towards that, or if they're like charity or have products that are potentially more environmentally friendly, that sort of thing is our kind of focus, mainly e-commerce. And yeah, so I basically run the show for SEO for the agency. It was a new service when I joined the agency just over a year ago. So I've basically been growing it myself and introducing it to everyone else there. And we're kind of just learning the ropes as an agency on how to do SEO as a small and sustainable agency, and trying to do SEO in a sustainable way as well, which is
Nice. Nice. First time I'm hearing actually working SEO in a in sustainable way. So I didn't have any chance to hear these two words, SEO and sustainability, in the one sentence. So that's so nice to hear that.
Yeah, it's good fun. It's very good fun. We're obviously still very early days, because it's a very digital it's the whole thing is digital, isn't it? It's hard to think about it as a sustainability issue, but it is. So it's something we're very conscious of when we're doing what we're doing as an agency. And I'm super proud to be a part of it.
Nice. And how everything started? How did you enroll the SEO world, and how did you feel back then?
So it started. So I always wanted to be in marketing, but I didn't know anything about SEO at all until I was in my previous role. So I worked in marketing agencies when I came out of university, where I studied marketing, and didn't really find my thing. So I did little bits of paid search. I did bits of PR, did bits of, pretty much everything I did a little bit of. Even tried my hand at design, which I was not very good at. And yeah, there was nothing that really clicked. I moved to the agency that I was at before Hello Earth. And a little while in, my manager kind of came to me and said, "You're not having a good time, are you?" And I was like, "No, I'm really not." I was brought in to do PR and like link building style content marketing. And it was not going well. I had no experience, so they took a punt on me, and it did not pay off. I was terrible at it, and basically just wasted a lot of money for a year. Um, so my manager also happened to be the guy that was basically in charge of SEO at the time in the agency, and he was like, "Yeah, let's change it up. Do you want to try some SEO and see how you feel?" And yeah, he gave me a few kind of things to try, and I tried it out, and I just loved it. And that it's kind of been that's been my obsession since, really. So yeah, I just needed someone else to offer me that as an opportunity, and I picked it up, and I've been happy ever since.
Yeah, obsession. I think that's definitely what we are all feeling about SEO. And I have never met like SEO professional that is not obsessed with SEO. And I think that is the only way how you can actually be on track and be like with all these crazy things that are happening nowadays. Because if you are not addicted to it, like you will not handle it, like, and you will not like it in the end. So
Yeah, exactly. I've also never met an SEO that's not completely obsessed with SEO. So
yeah, that's so common. All right, so I think for especially this topic, people who are going to watch this and who are here definitely are here for the core like advices, like how to first like be aware of the ADHD, and then like how to handle, how to communicate with others. So maybe if you can start with how everything started, like with in your case.
sure. So I had always felt a little bit like I didn't experience things the same way that other people did. And it was never really something I ever talked about. So even when I was young, I kind of just didn't quite feel like I fitted in with what everybody else was doing. I was always known as very chatty. I had a lot to say and not a lot of time to say it. She's got so much potential if she just stopped talking. All of that at school, it was all the same sort of thing. I even had like really bad hyperactivity spells when I was really young and had to have like limited sugar and particular E numbers I couldn't have and all this crazy stuff. And they basically just thought I was an energetic kid. Um, and then as I got older and older, I never thought it was ADHD, but I did again still kind of feel like I wasn't experiencing life the same way that other people were. And a lot of things were very up and down. I was always anxious. And yeah, I just didn't really know what was kind of going on. And then it actually only very recently I was actually diagnosed. So I was diagnosed about 2 years ago. And the reason it came about was after working at home during lockdown, I was very aware that I was doing a lot more good work at home. And when we went back to the office, I really struggled, like really struggled. I found myself constantly feeling like I was overwhelmed and just really stressed out by the idea of being around all that noise and the temperature changing every 5 minutes because everybody wanted the air conditioning at a different temperature. Deciding what to wear. I was so specific about certain things. Little things like I was stressed about having to pack a lunch to take with me into the office because I didn't know what I was going to want to eat that day. And working from home during the lockdowns, I'd been able to just choose what I wanted there and then. Stuff like that, which all seems kind of normal in a way, but it's like everybody would experience that, but I had it like really exaggerated. And that's like one of the things that a lot of people don't know about ADHD is that the symptoms are basically everyday people things, but extremely exaggerated. So, you might have that itchy jumper that you don't really like wearing, but you'll probably wear it because you like it. But I physically can't deal with the itchy jumper sort of thing. It's that sort of, so yeah, after going back into the office and just really not enjoying myself. I was like, what has changed? Why am I not okay like I was before? And it actually started with TikToks. I was watching TikToks a lot. And that was when it all started getting big, obviously during lockdown. And I just had a bunch of people that were coming up on my feed saying all these things that they were experiencing, and were like, this could be a sign of ADHD. And I'd never really thought about it. And I looked it up. I did the classic ADHD, tons of research, got a bit hyper focused on it, searched up everything I possibly could about ADHD in women. It's horribly underdiagnosed because women present ADHD very differently. And it was more common after the rise of social media as well, because there are certain things that can cause quite similar symptoms that happen with social media. So there were also people that were being misdiagnosed because they were essentially like weirdly traumatized by overuse of social media, which is very weird. And I didn't know that was a thing either. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna look into this a bit more and perhaps actually speak to someone who might be able to help out. And when I did speak to my doctor, and they kind of basically said, I think you need to go and see, maybe do a test of some description to see if you actually match the criteria. So they often send you like an online test that you can do that says all the things that are classic symptoms. I did the test and it said I was like 85% likely to have ADHD in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of where it came from.
And after you did a test, like how did you feel? Like was it like more clear to you, or like have you been like more concerned? Like what kind of feelings cause the results of the test?
I think I was worried, because I didn't really know what that meant for me, for my career, for everything that kind of came after that. I also didn't know what the official diagnosis process was like. So it created a bit of, I didn't really have, it was a bit of unknown, and I didn't like the unknown. But at the same time, it was also kind of quite, it made me feel like validated that I'd always thought I'd experienced things differently, and perhaps I actually had experienced things differently, and it wasn't just me thinking that I was the main character. Like it might have actually been because of something. So it was scary, but really validating. And then especially when I got the official diagnosis, I sat down and had a big cry, because I felt like everything in the world felt a lot easier because I knew why I was the way I was. But also I was like, how am I going to deal with this moving forward? Like it's a lot of information to take in, and it's a lot to process.
Yeah, it looks like you got a relief, because like all the puzzles like are like done, but also you now have a new worry to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it was once I got the official diagnosis, and my psychiatrist said, you're both types of ADHD. So there's two general types. There's attentive and inattentive. So there's basically hyperactive and like very docile. And I'm a bit of both, which is the worst one, in my opinion, because it means every 5 minutes you're switching from being pinging off the walls to wanting to sleep. And that, like, just knowing all of that made it basically explained everything that I'd dealt with over the years. It explained all my school reports. It explained why I didn't like things that other people liked, why I don't like exercising, and I don't like, being out in certain, like why I don't like it when it's really hot out. And lots of people are like, oh, it's lovely and hot outside. And I'm like, no, go away. I don't want any of it. Things like that. It just explained so much. So it was a huge relief. But then, yeah, I had to deal with the concern of like, how am I going to tell my employers? How is that going to affect my employment moving forward? Do I need medication for it? Like how do I treat it? How bad is it? All of that stuff. So you get a lot of questions from it as well.
Yeah, and that is something that also like I would like to discuss actually, like what are the next steps so people who are like even doing these tests to actually know like, okay, now I have or I don't have it, but like if I have it, like what is my next step? Because I think like this is like the most kind of like challenging moment because you have been diagnosed, like you get results and now you don't know like what to do. So you are having like even more pressure, you are having more anxiety. So all these feelings are like on the highest level because this is a huge challenge to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. So I also didn't know what the next step was. So I kind of had to wing it. And I didn't have anyone close to me at the time that I knew that also had ADHD. So I kind of just had to work it out. And I started with being as open and honest as I could be with my employers. So they knew I was going through the testing process, and they knew that I had concerns. I wouldn't necessarily say they were like super supportive, but they weren't also, horrible about it. I was very honest with them and said that this is part of me now, and I don't know what's going to happen next. I then found out from my psychiatrist that there are some things that happen generally when you get diagnosed. So a lot of people experience what you call unmasking and skill regression when you find out that you have something like ADHD or autism. It's a similar thing where basically you're like, okay, so this is why I am the way I am. But all of the years that you've spent covering up how you are to try and fit in with everyone else, you kind of have to unlearn it. And taking that kind of normal person mask off, as much as I hate the phrase normal person, taking that typical person mask off and allowing your untypical self to be there often results in your brain being like, I don't know how to do things without being in complete flight mode all the time. So you basically, the best way I can explain it is you live your life in fight or flight or like rest. And most people have the rest and they do the fight or flight when they're like in a stressful situation. But when you have something like ADHD, you spend a lot of your life in that fight or flight sort of mode, and you don't really get the rest bit. So you kind of feel like you're constantly on edge, constantly stressed about something, constantly worried or anxious about something happening. And then when you take the mask off and you get a little bit of the rest, your brain goes, I don't know how to do things like a normal person. Like, I only know how to do these things under extreme pressure. And you kind of forget how to do stuff. Like, you have to teach yourself how to do everything that you did before. I had to teach myself a lot of new ways of doing my work, and teach myself how to remember things and stuff like that, because even things like stuff that had worked previously didn't really work anymore. It's a bizarre experience to be like, oh well, that used to help me a lot and now it doesn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and can you just tell us a little bit of example, like how did you find a new way of doing like the things that is like more in the way that is more suitable for you, that like it's more beneficial for you? How did you find that kind of like part? Like definitely it was learning, but what kind of signals you were tracking to say like, yeah, this is something that like now it's better for me?
So the main one I think that I had to learn how to do was to get back into like a focus mode. So I'd pretty much over the time that I'd been working and was undiagnosed, I'd kind of just faked being focused. As you know, as that's the best way I can describe it, is like faking a focus mode. When I got diagnosed and I was like, okay, so that's why I can't pay attention to anything. I then suddenly really couldn't pay attention to anything. It was almost like the diagnosis made that worse. So I had to do a bunch of like trial and error. I did a load of research. I actually use TikTok quite a lot as well. A lot of people say things like TikTok are not valuable resources. They really are for a starting point. So like for anybody who's watching, listening, if you're getting a lot of stuff on TikTok that says you could have ADHD, don't be like, TikTok's diagnosing me. Do the further research, because that's where I started and it's really helped. So it's not an invalid thing to find it on TikTok. So I actually used social media quite a lot to look up like what tactics other people were using that were helpful. I found a bunch of ADHD creators on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok that all had a lot of like hints and tips for getting into what we call hyper focus or like focus mode. And I just had to try loads of different stuff. And I knew it was working. The bits that I tried were working when I forgot that I was trying it.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I'd be like, one of my big hacks is I have my headphones on, they're sound noise cancelling headphones, and I have a specific playlist of songs that I know so well that I know like every word and there's nothing new, so I don't like listen to it necessarily. It blocks everything out, and I'm able to basically forget that I'm listening to music because I know all the songs so well. It's like background music, and then I just kind of get on with stuff. And the first time that actually worked, I kind of just sat doing bits and bobs, doing my work, and was like, oh, that worked quite well after I'd done a couple of hours of decent work. So yeah, that's kind of like the only way I knew that things were working, was that like,
Yeah.
forgot I was trying out.
And what was in the situation when it didn't work, when you were trying like different things, but it hasn't actually been successful? Like, what did you saying to yourself? Like, how definitely in these moments you are your biggest support, because like probably nobody is there, maybe partners, but actually most of the times like you are alone with yourself. So what kind of support you were giving to yourself, and like what kind of advice you can share?
So obviously I knew things weren't working when I was getting distracted super easily. So I knew that having notifications on my Google Calendar, that didn't work. And I realized that didn't work because it meant that every time I got a notification, I clicked off whatever I was doing and started doing something else, and did the classic, like completely got distracted immediately by something else, and then I'd forget what I was doing in the first place. So I think it is pretty much all trial and error. So in terms of like advice that I could give to people that were having this experience, or even just not having ADHD but just struggling with focus in general and trying to get good work done, the advice I've got is that like, it's just try as much as possible different tactics for creating an environment where you're able to get stuff done. And it takes a long time to get there. I'm still not there 100%. Like, I don't know if I ever will be there 100%. But for me, things like, I knew if I put music on that I wanted to sing along to, I wouldn't get anything done, because I'd instead just be sitting in my chair vibing to the music instead of getting the work done. And the same goes for like, a lot of people really love like repetitive or like lo-fi music or something like that, that's very quiet and, you know, calming. I can't do that stuff either most of the time because it makes me tired, and then I don't do any work. So it literally is just finding the things that work for you And even if you're not ADHD, that's just as valuable. Just finding the little tips and tricks that work for you. Like for me, a couple of things that really work, obviously my headphones. I always have at least 2 different types of drink. So I'll always have my trusty emotional support water bottle that goes with me everywhere. And same sort of thing with like reminding yourself to drink water. That sort of make it super easy. Get one with the straw. And then I will always have a like taste drink. So I'll have one for hydration, one for taste. And then sometimes I'll also have a hot drink as well, which is, you know, often you get the 3, which is the energy, the taste, and the hydration. Things like that. I'll always make sure my workspace is like clean and clear, because I find that a cluttered space makes me feel really cluttered, and then I get distracted super easily. Things like I have a whiteboard above my desk that basically has where I'm at with all of my different clients and what I've got to do next. And then as I do stuff, I can be like, oh, I've done that thing. I can update my whiteboard now. And it's almost like a little game, being able to do a little update. And then I'm like, yeah, that's done. And I mean, that is also quite a good tip, like gamifying things, making things little tasks that make it really fun, and make it like you're kind of winning if you get something done. That helps a lot of people. It helps me to an extent. Things like I can eat that chocolate bar if I get this done in a certain amount of time. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I'll just eat the chocolate bar. Depends whether I remember that I'm an adult and I can make my own choices or not. But yeah, that's my they're my like top things that I've found work really well for me. But I know a lot of those things won't work for other people. And it really is just finding your own rhythm and finding your own way of doing things that work for you. And people might look at you and think you're a weirdo because you're writing on a whiteboard. Or, you know, people might think you're silly because you've got a novelty headphones on, because it actually makes you put them on, and or something like that, or because you're listening to Christmas music in July. Whatever works for you, that's what's important. It's so easy to be worried about being judged, but if it works, it works, and your employer is going to rather you look a bit silly with some novelty headphones on than you're not being able to get your work done. So
Yeah, but also you don't need to do any of these, and like people can still think that you're weirdo for some reason. So if you're
yeah,
just paying attention like what other people will say, like just like don't waste energy and time on it, because like they will think like whatever they think, even like we are doing something or even we are not doing something, like it's
yeah,
on them, it's not on us.
exactly.
So yeah, I think you gave a lot of good advices, and definitely like this is something that even when you are not having ADHD and you are having a struggle with focus, like just like trying different things, like what is actually working for you, and don't be hard on yourself, because like you are in the process of figuring out. Because if you are in the middle of process putting so much pressure on yourself, and like you're being your own like enemy, then it's definitely will harder for you to just like find your way. But yeah, I think people are so hard on themselves, uh, especially in these situations when we don't need to be. Like we will find the that is something that is working better for us. It's just like takes some time. Like sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's not, but it's just like putting pressure on us. Definitely it's not helping.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
you mentioned, and that is something that we started, like the steps after like getting results, and you mentioned like communication with your employer, manager, and definitely here we have a huge fear of first rejection, fear like what people will say, and then definitely what will happen. Maybe I'm going to be fired, maybe they will decrease my salary, like maybe I will lose some clients. So I think that would be like also a huge challenge for people. Like even they know they have and now they need to communicate like this with the employer. So how you overcome that moment to actually, you know what, I'm going to tell my employer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so. A big part of it for me with my previous employer was I felt like I needed to explain why I'd had some issues with certain things, and it almost felt like a bit of like proof as to what I was saying when I was saying I'm struggling with noise, I'm struggling being in the office. Like, it was almost like okay, here's your proof that that was real and I wasn't just doing it because I wanted to work from home because it was more comfy. It was so if you're in that situation, I think try and think of it like I'm proving that I'm not making this up and I'm actually having this experience. And that makes you feel a little bit more confident with having that conversation. I was very lucky at my last job that the manager that I had at the time was very kind about the situation, and I spoke to him directly and he was very understanding. I think it is important to know who you're having that conversation with, and not you don't necessarily have to have that conversation either. If you think that you can get by without having to have that conversation with an employer, or you think that employer is likely to then be prejudiced against you because of it, sometimes it is easier to have that satisfaction of knowing that you've been through that process and now you understand yourself better and you can understand your work a bit better, but to not have to have that additional pressure of that prejudice on you if you have a feeling that your employer is going to be crappy and be like that. Thankfully, I didn't have that experience. But in terms of so when I moved on from my last job and was interviewing for jobs afterwards, I put in all of my applications very obviously that I had a disability and that it was ADHD. So a lot of employers will ask within application forms if you have any disabilities that they would need to provide any kind of additional support for. And I put that within that because ADHD is a disability. A lot of people think it's just in your brain. It's not. It does take a lot of physical toll on people and it does affect people around you. So I always made sure I was very clear and open because I didn't want to work anywhere that didn't have, for starters, didn't have that space for me to be able to declare that I had that condition, but also if they were going to be prejudiced about it, then I kind of wanted to know straight up rather than having that awkward experience where I feel like I'm going to have a good time and then it ends up being really rubbish because they're not willing to make those changes or to flex things a little bit to suit how you work best. So I was very clear in all of my applications that I had ADHD. And I also put and made sure when I was talking with recruiters that recruiters were clear about that as well. And that it didn't necessarily affect my performance or the quality of my work. It's just that I do things a little differently sometimes. And that's fine. A lot of people do things differently. So why am I any different, Yeah. And I think I also made sure I mentioned it when I had interviews, my first interviews with each person that I then interviewed with after. I always made sure I said, I don't know if you saw on my application or with a recruiter that I do have ADHD, and I just wanted you to know that it's something that I'm managing myself. Obviously, by that point, I was medicated as well, so I was dealing with it a lot better. And yeah, I was able to just be like, if this is going to be a problem, don't worry about it. I'd rather go and work somewhere else. And luckily, at the moment, it is a job seeker's space. If you're looking for something, you've got, especially in SEO, there's a lot of demand for good SEOs. So ADHD shouldn't really matter. It shouldn't matter anyway, but especially now it shouldn't matter. So I was kind of like, I was in a good space where I was able to say, if you're not going to be supportive, I don't need to work for you. And I think more people should be like that if they're in an industry where you can be. You should be, because you shouldn't be treated like rubbish just because of something you were born with. So yeah, I think they're like my key things, especially for people that are looking for work. In terms of communicating it with like your team, and if you're in an existing team and you get diagnosed and you're struggling to communicate it with the wider team, I've always found this quite easy, so I don't know if I'm the best person to kind of give advice on this, but I didn't have someone in my industry that I could look up to that had ADHD the same way. So I was like, okay, I'm going to be that person. I'm going to try and make myself that person, so that anybody else in our industry that feels like they can't get anywhere, or they're struggling because they have ADHD and they just need someone that has had success as someone to see and be like, you can do it. I'm going to make myself that. And I make sure that I say regularly to my team, I'm very honest with my team, and I say, I've run out of meds, so I'm feeling a bit kooky today. I keep it nice and light. I keep it nice and like silly, and almost make a joke out of it, to be honest, because it's easier for people to feel like they can approach you on the topic. And actually being that open about it with my colleagues has meant, in past and current roles, has meant that they've also considered whether they might have it. And that the idea that I've potentially helped someone on their journey was enough for me to feel confident to talk a lot about it and make sure that someone else had that person that I didn't have when I was first going through it. So yeah, that's my kind of, I don't know if that's going to help a lot of people who are going to be super scared to talk about it. But if you are super scared to talk about it, find me on LinkedIn and I will help you. I'll guide you through it. I will be there for you if you're going through this, because it is scary. But it's worth it being open about it. People just feel so much more comfortable if you're able to just be like, this is me. And unfortunately, that's just how it is. And if you don't like it, sorry, but if you do, then perfect.
Yeah, I think it's just like inspirational to see like with the how much confidence you are talking about all this, and definitely that will be a motivation for other people to actually like face this challenge and then also communicate. And definitely regarding this communication, like I know there is a huge fear of rejection, but like actually if you are upfront of like your things and like how you are handling your work, and if you are not mentioning that, then definitely in the future there is a maybe possibility that they have been is going to be like discovered, or you will tell after. But if they are not accepting you in the way that you are really are, then definitely that company is not for you.
Yeah, 100.
So, and like even like they are saying no to you if they are seeing like that you are having like ADHD like in your resume, and then definitely you don't need to work there, and then you will be closer to your future company that is like more right for you. So
Yeah,
just like switching that kind of mindset, like yeah, it's better that like 10 companies reject me now, but that 11 company that is actually accepting, that will be a right company for me. And it's not just about like this, it's about like all different things that we are handling. Like doesn't matter like if I have any other like priorities, preferences, like how to work, it's better to be upfront, because like definitely you're not helping yourself just like covering this up. You are making like even harder for you to work in that place. And yeah, like what's the worst they can say, like no, and then like you can move further and you can uh, find another company that is actually be a perfect fit for you.
yeah, exactly. I like to because I struggle a lot with the rejection thing. And I like to think to myself, right, okay, so if I get rejected on something because of this, which thankfully I haven't, because my current agency are amazing. But if I'd been rejected because of it, I'm like, actually, okay, so I could be honest about it, have that conversation. It might be horrible, but it's going to be 20 minutes of horrible conversation versus years of uncomfortable employment. And your job is something you go to every day, 5 days a week. It's what you think about. And if you're ADHD, it's often what you then take home in the evening and do at the weekends and worry about all the time otherwise. It's such a huge part of your life that it's not worth having that misery just because you don't want to have that 20-minute conversation that might be really awkward or uncomfortable or negative. It's so not worth wasting years of your life somewhere that you're going to be miserable, especially if you're in a situation where you can choose who you work for. I do think another good tip that I heard was that sometimes people struggle with the change if they're changing jobs, and they can't. People say like, oh, well, what if I can't find an employer that wants an ADHD SEO, to take our industry as an example. It's okay to not be doing SEO as a job for a little while. Like, it's okay as long as you kind of keep up with what's going on so you don't lose your skills. It's okay to go and work doing data entry or go and do something mindless for a little while until you find the perfect place. It's better to wait and find your people than be miserable just because you want to be doing SEO. Do a little bit of freelance and go work at Tesco's for a little while or something like that. Anything, it doesn't matter. Do something else and then come back to it and have another go. And eventually you will find a place that is right for you and that will accept you for who you are and will welcome you with open arms like Hello Earth has with me. And they'll learn how to communicate with you. They'll ask you questions and they'll treat you like a person that doesn't have something wrong with them. You get treated like a person that's just a bit different. And that's like, it's so valuable having that for your mental and physical health. It's so much more valuable having that than it is having that little bit of extra money staying in SEO for a while you can't find somewhere that accepts you for who you are.
Yeah, because just staying in the environment that is not supporting for any of the reasons, like, is more harmful for even your career, for your health, for your well-being at all, than just like working in any supermarket, in cafe, something like that, getting because we will survive just having a smaller salary, smaller title, or something like that. But actually, what we will not survive is just actually like this kind of like mental health that can be caused by all these non-supportive environment.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, one thing before here, the crucial moment here, what is happening is actually that people are rushing into new decision, rushing into new company, because they just want to get that, for example, new job, because they are hoping that they will feel better once they have a new job. They are not realizing that even with that kind of rushing your decision and get a new job, you will get just new set of numerous problems that you need to handle now. And because of your past decisions and because of the challenges that you didn't overcome, that you didn't learn how to overcome in the past, now instead of like 5 new issues, you are having like 10 new issues to handle with, and that you need to learn how to handle all these things because you skip the steps.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like, rushing into new career, into new title, like even being promoted, even like, doesn't matter like what, is not actually helping you. They are making more issues on the bigger level because you didn't learn how to overcome the last kind of like lessons. And that is applicable for all of, like, even SEO professionals, maybe I'm always saying to my clients, maybe SEO professionals are more exposed to all these because we are facing a lot of challenges, for example, than just like one accountant that like all these like finance templates, like everything is the same. SEO professionals are handling like every new updates, every week new things are happening in the SEO world. So we are constantly exposed to new challenges. And if you didn't overcome your past challenge, then definitely you are you are more open for a new challenge that maybe it looks like a very big challenge, but because of you didn't learn how to handle smaller challenge now, it causing you new level of frustration, new level of stress, new level of everything. So just like taking that kind of like small steps, learning small mindset things will actually help you to overcome big challenges in the future much more easier than you would do than just like not doing on your mindset. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for mentioning this, because like uh, doesn't matter like if you have like any kind of diagnosis or just you are kind of like, and what is normal today, so that doesn't exist, but like people are just using these keywords like they are nothing. So yeah, I'm very glad that you mentioned that, so we can discuss this. And also you mentioned a very important thing is actually how people to communicate with you. So definitely that will help me, other people, employers, like how to actually communicate with people who have been or like who think that maybe they have like ADHD.
Yeah, so again, it's different with a lot of people. So a lot of people prefer different communication styles. Personally, the one I find more people that I know that have it like is basically black and white, literal, very clear, no kind of what I would call fluffing or faffing or beating around the bush, I guess, like whatever you want to call it. So I have always said to my employers, like I need, if you have feedback for me, or if you have something you need to tell me or instructions for something, it needs to be super clear exactly what it is you want. So I basically, it feels a bit like you're asking to have your hand held through things, and that can be a little bit embarrassing sometimes. But I remember best an example of this is when I had some slides, and we were getting ready to present them, and the person that was kind of building the slides out said, I think we need a little bit more in these slides. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't understand. You need to tell me exactly what you want to see, what you're seeing in your mind. You need to tell me, because I can't take what you're saying and turn it into something like a lot of people can. I can't interpret. We need to add more into things like a lot of other people can. I need that really clear black and white communication. So can you give me some examples of what you would like to see in this? And as a result of that conversation, I actually basically said to the whole team, I was like, by the way, if you ever need anything from me, or you need me to do something, or if there's something that you have to tell me, to talk to me about, just be super obvious. Be like, this is exactly what I need, or this is exactly how I feel about this thing. And that will make it so much easier for me to not only get it right the first time, the next time, but also it makes it so much easier because I then don't have to deal with the feedback of you've done this wrong, or you've not done this how I was expecting you to do this. And I'm like, but I can't interpret how you were expecting me to do it without you literally telling me exactly what you were expecting. So I'm very, very clear with my team and clients as well. I'm very clear that, like, tell me exactly what you want if you know exactly what you want. If you don't know exactly what you want, then that's fine. We can experiment and talk about it. But if you do, or you've got some examples of what you want, that you want me to recreate with my skill, then I need that, because I'm not able to interpret things the way that a lot of people are. Adding fluff or like making it more detailed, to me that doesn't mean anything. I need specifics on those things. So, and I know a lot of other ADHD and autistic people have the same communication style. Well, actually, we don't want the fluff. A lot of the time we just want, here's exactly what we need step by step, or this is exactly the result that I'm expecting from this task, and we'll go away and do it gold star first time, as long as we actually know what it is that you want at the end.
Yeah. Basically, I'm listening to you, and actually, that is something that I'm always like encouraging, even like people who are like up or like my team, because basically that makes so much like our work easier, because like doesn't matter like when they are telling me like make it more visual or make it like more detailed, and you mentioned, or like more comprehensive, like what that means, like comprehensive keyword research in which terms, like in which categories, just like uh, but here I think people are so afraid to ask, because for example, you are my manager and you told me like, hey, can you make this keyword research, like keyword strategy, like more comprehensive? Then like I'm so afraid to ask you like what means comprehensive, because then I'm thinking you will think that I'm stupid. But actually no, I'm like bigger professional if I'm saying to you like, yeah, can you tell me like in which way more comprehensive, like, or in which way more detail? That reduce my work like and my hours to like to perfection, because now I know like in the which way I can do. So I think we should all do this, like even like doesn't matter on which side you are, actually just like, yeah, just like telling me I'm so straightforward person, and like I just like can't deal with fluff, especially because of my language barrier, because I don't have time to like look for all these words, and in my native language, as well, because like that makes so much like things clearly. It helps all people to just like, yeah, let's work on things and like talk clearly, and uh, definitely it helps all people to actually do their job and makes their life easier.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've gotten used to kind of using as a little bit of justification for asking for that information. So if a client said, I want a report on performance for November or something like that, as an example, and I provided something, they said, oh, well, can you make it a bit more detailed? If I was feeling a bit like, I don't know what that means, the way I ask is, I want to make sure I get this exactly how you want it. Can you tell me what exactly is missing from here? Or if you know what exactly is missing, so that I can get it right. That helps being like, actually, it's kind of putting it into, so they feel like they're getting something extra, or like you're really taking your care over it, because you're saying, I want to make sure that I get this right for you.
Oh yeah.
And this is your report. This is for you. You've asked for it. I want to make sure I get this right, because, it's important to me to get it right. Tell me exactly what you need. And that actually works like 99% of the time. People are like, oh, of course. Yeah, I need this, and this data in it specifically for X reason. Or you can say things like, what is the intended purpose of this information or this task that I'm doing after I've done it? What are you going to use it for? What do you need it for? So that I can make sure I provide the right information within the task that I'm doing. And a lot of the time that will encourage them to give you that information that you're nervous of asking about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that
that's
helps a
so
lot.
nice, because actually you are expressing that what you're doing is very valuable to you, and also your client is valuable to you. So you want to make a right report for them, and just expressing that in that way makes them feel like more important, and that like you're not doing your job just like for the sake of doing, that you actually want to make them uh, more like happy and like more satisfied. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's very nice to rephrase that. All right. So can you maybe think about like anything that you would like to share? Maybe I didn't ask you, maybe we didn't touch on that.
I think um I guess my kind of like biggest bit of advice that I have for anyone that is struggling a bit, particularly with work. I've said the same thing to a few people that have been struggling, and I know it's helped them, or they've told me so. So my biggest bit of advice is that you need to be kind to yourself. If you, especially if you have something like ADHD, but anybody in general, be kind to yourself. I every day am like, I did good today. I got out of bed. I had a shower. I did things that are for people with ADHD, chronic illness, disabilities, all those sorts of things. Everything that is like seemingly normal and very easy and autopilot for people who don't have those things, it takes so much more energy, it takes so much more effort, it is exhausting. So when you get to the end of a day, if you've done good work, if you've got out of bed, if you've had a shower, if you've brushed your teeth, say thank you to yourself and be like, I did good today. I did all that stuff that other people take for granted on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. I remembered to eat. Go me. It's that you really have to be so kind to yourself, because if you don't, and you live by expectations that are set by people who don't find those things difficult, you're constantly going to be beating yourself up. You're always going to be thinking that you're behind, or that you're not good enough, or that you're, why can't I do this? I used to ask myself all the time, and actually I still do sometimes, say, why can't I do this? Everyone else can do this easily. Like, why can't I do it? It's because it's the rest of the world is not built for me. I have to try and fit into a world that's built for people that are not like me. So I have to say thank you to myself. I have to say well done. I have to reward myself for when I get through those things, those days that are really hard and I don't want to get out of bed and I don't want to shower. When I do, that's an achievement. So the fact that I've been able to have a career, I've been able to do a full day's work, I've been able to do all this extra stuff, doing stuff like this, doing Brighton SEO talks, things like that. The reason I can do all that stuff is because I'm kinder to myself now. And I'm like, well done, me, for getting through what is harder for me to do than most other people. And it goes for anybody that has any kind of ailment or illness or disability that makes things a bit difficult. Like it's the same thing. And even if you're going through something, some mental health problems, even if you're struggling with depression or anxiety, same goes. If you got out of bed and you showered and you did a day's work, you've done incredibly. So, like, well done you. That's
Yeah,
the best advice I have.
I would say well done, Levi. I think every sentence that when since we started, and it's like almost like 1 hour ago, I think it's so useful, and I think it's so beneficial for not just like people with ADHD, with for all SEO professionals who are doing like SEO work for their everyday tasks. So I think we can all learn from these things. So um, thank you so much for doing this. I
Thank you
think
for
a
having me.
huge value is here, and yeah, for people who would like to get in contact with you, they can find you on LinkedIn.
Yep,
So I will also tag your LinkedIn profile in the video so they can find you below.
awesome.
And yeah, I have no more words to say except thank you for doing this, and thank you for sharing your experience on the very specific topic. It helps all of us. So I hope I will see you maybe in the one of the next episodes, maybe next year around some another topic that you are passionate about as well. So looking forward to what 2024 will make for you.
Me too. Thank you very much for having me. I've had a lovely time. And yeah, like you said, if anybody wants to reach out, whether they're ADHD or not, and just wants a chat or some support, please do just chuck me a DM on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to help. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. And for people who are watching this, see you in the next SEO Happy Hour episode.
Thank you.
Bye bye.